From Rhiannon and me, welcome to this evening's programme.
First tonight, the widow who's demanding answers from an Essex hospital after she was stopped from visiting her husband in the last days of his life.
Chris Burks, who was 80 and from Panfield near Braintree, died at Broomfield Hospital in Chelmsford. His wife Connie says she wasn't allowed to see him during the last 11 days of his life because of visiting restrictions during an outbreak of the norovirus bug at the hospital.
Now Mrs Burks and her MP are calling for an investigation. Lorna Ramsey reports.
Chris and Connie Burks from Panfield near Braintree have been through everything together. In their 47 years of marriage, they've had 5 children, 6 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. A lifetime of memories. But when Chris died last week, his wife wasn't there.
I'll never get over this. Being locked away from someone so ill. Never. It was wrong. There's got to be exceptions in circumstances, and this was very exceptional. My husband had had an amputation and everything, and it was going wrong. Something was going wrong with his heart.
Chris Burks was admitted to Broomfield on the 4th of January because of circulation problems in his leg. He had an operation to try to rectify the problem, but on the 19th of January, doctors were forced to amputate. On the 1st of February, the hospital closed to visitors because of the norovirus outbreak. Connie was allowed in on the 5th of February to help her husband with consent forms for another operation. That was the last time she saw her husband alive. He died on the 16th of February.
I should basically have been allowed in way before Chris became that ill, and to think that he died alone, basically. And I wasn't there to hold his hand and to kiss him and say our goodbyes. However you do it and however hard it is, I should have been there.
The hospital sent us this statement. The Trust would like to offer condolences to the family of Mr Burks following his sudden death. The visiting restrictions were put in place in an effort to contain an outbreak of the winter vomiting bug norovirus. Despite these restrictions, visitors were never refused if a patient was terminally ill or very poorly. But that's not good enough for Mrs Burks's local MP, and hospital chiefs can expect to hear from him soon.
I can talk from a personal experience. My stepfather died just over a year ago. He had MRSA, C. difficile, and clearly had to go in isolation because they didn't want the disease to spread. I do know with contagious diseases, hospitals have a responsibility, a duty of care and so on, but they will always make exceptions when a family member is terminally ill and they're going to die. And in this particular case, clearly there was some sort of snafu in the bureaucracy that prevented the family going in. And I want to get to the bottom of this, and I'm going to ask the hospital to investigate this case in particular.
Although Connie wants to hear those answers, nothing will change the fact she was kept from her husband's bedside when he needed her the most. Lorna Ramsey, Anglia News, Panfield.
Where did he do most of his work?
Well, earlier today I spoke to Graham Ramsey, who's the chief executive of the Trust in charge of Broomfield Hospital, and asked him whether in the case of Mr Burks they should have acted quicker.
I think if I'd been aware of the individual case, I probably could have acted quicker. I'd like to give an explanation why we took the step of banning most visitors. Like many hospitals, we've had significant trouble with the vomiting and diarrhoea virus, norovirus. We had up to 3 wards closed, and we were having repeated outbreaks moving from one ward to another. So this unfortunate necessity to reduce visiting was taken to protect patients, but also to enable us to continue delivering good quality care.
In your statement, you do say that visitors are never refused if a patient is terminally ill or very poorly. Surely in this case, though, the family was let down.
Well, they were, but you need to distinguish between a case where a patient is deteriorating and you know in advance that that's happening, and a case where a patient dies suddenly, which I understand was what happened in this case. We cannot predict an unexpected death and therefore cannot give family the warning or permission to come in for a visit.
The Burke family have made other allegations that Mr Burke was malnourished, dehydrated and had also lost a wedding ring. What do you say to that?
I have not received in writing any of those allegations and would need written consent from the family before discussing them in public. Be assured that we will be investigating them fully, as we do with all complaints.
And finally, undoubtedly it is difficult for hospitals at this time of year to deal with the norovirus. Can you make guarantees to this family that lessons have been learnt?
Lessons have been learned, and in fact at the end of last week, by coincidence, we were discussing reopening to visitors anyway. And I took that decision yesterday, not on the back of this case, but because we've still got an outbreak on one ward despite the ban, and had become aware of many elderly patients in particular who were 10 days without visitors, and the problems that the step had taken were beginning to outweigh the potential benefits in controlling the outbreak.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, next, a court in Luton's heard more details of the abuse suffered by a man allegedly murdered and dumped in the Bedfordshire lake.
The prosecution told yesterday how Michael Gilbert was kept as a slave by the Watt family so that they could steal his benefit money. Today, a witness described how the victim was regularly handcuffed and forced to sleep under a bunk bed.
Well, our correspondent Neil Bradford joins us live now. Neil, more astonishing claims today, then.
Yes, today we heard evidence from two people who were regular visitors at the Watt house. Both recalled graphic accounts, both recalled regular beatings. Now, one of them, Philip Budd, described how the Watt brothers had control over Michael Gilbert, who James Watt met at a children's home in Luton when he was just 15. He simply accepted the beatings he received and did not fight back. Now, he recalled to the jury on one occasion when he saw Michael stabbed in the arm, another when he was hit with a baseball bat. Now, another witness, Zoe Smith, a former girlfriend of Colin Watt, another brother who's not part of this trial, she revealed the degradation that Michael Gilbert suffered at the hands of the Watt family. She claimed he was shackled to a bed with handcuffs.
Today, more harrowing detail emerged of what the prosecution allege happened behind closed doors at this Luton house. It is here they allege Michael Gilbert was murdered and his body dismembered in January last year. The jury has heard how the vulnerable 26-year-old who had learning difficulties had been kept as a slave by the Watt family for up to 10 years. Brothers Robert and James Watt, along with his girlfriend Natasha Oldfield and Nicola Roberts, the girlfriend of the men's other brother Richard, have all denied murder. Richard Watt will now give evidence for the prosecution. The men's father, Antonio, and their mother, Jennifer Smith-Dennis, are charged with allowing the death of a vulnerable adult and perverting the course of justice. The prosecution say all regularly tortured Michael Gilbert, forcing him to carry out chores and stealing his benefit money. Today the court heard how James Watt was the main tormentor. Giving evidence from behind a screen, Zoe Smith, the former girlfriend of another brother, Colin Watt, who's not on trial, told the jury she was a regular visitor at the Watts household. She recalled how Michael would not be allowed to move freely around the house and would sometimes be locked in a room. She also told the jury she had witnessed James's girlfriend Natasha Oldfield hit Michael Gilbert in the stomach twice with a hammer. Asked about sleeping arrangements in the Watt family home in Marlborough Road, Zoe Smith told the court that Colin and his brother Robert shared a bunk bed. She said it was usual practice for Michael Gilbert to be handcuffed to that bed and forced to sleep underneath it. Under cross-examination, she said that in her 3-year relationship with Colin Watt, she was at his home around 150 times. Asked why in all that time she did not do anything about it or seek help, she told the court she was too scared. The trial continues. Neil Bradford, Anglia News, Luton Crown Court.
Now it's 10 past